Hello and welcome back to the Master Division of the Intermezzo Championship. In the last video we saw the last game of the first batch of games, meaning today we are going to take a look at the first game of the second batch of games, and it's gonna be an interesting one that could potentially have quite an impact on the decision or on who will be able to win the league at the end, because it will be a game against Pajada and Arne, so against I'm involved, the first place, Pajada the second place, and then Arne, who shares the third place together with Danny Boy. So, yeah, the outcome of this game definitely could dictate how the race for the first place will be going. If I should win this game, I could really distance myself and I would be in a very nice position. But on the other hand, it's of course also a nice opportunity for both Pajada and Arne to catch up to me and get closer to me. Alright, but now without further ado, let's take a look at the game. I'm playing in the first position in this game, and first of all we can take a look at the leaders and wonders. And now we have Internet and Pierre on H3, so that's an interesting combination. We also have Marlene Dietrich and Fleming together with the Hollywood. Then we have some lab leaders with Einstein and Sid Meier, as well as Marie Curie. There's also Mandela in the game. We have the Red Cross and Manhattan Project. In H2 there's the Suez Canal and James Cook, so some big colonization payoff cards. There's no ocean liner service, but there is Maria Theresa. There are some culture leaders with Anthony Gaudi, Bach and Shakespeare. Some strong wonders apart from the ocean liner who is missing. So apart from the ocean liner, maybe the strongest wonders potentially are in the game. And then we have one military action leader with Robespierre. Also one military action leader in H1 with Joan of Arc. Nostradamus and Barbarossa can help with the strength. Barbarossa, Eleanor and Isabella can work nicely in a colonization game. We also have Michelangelo together potentially with St. Peter's Basilica. We have Silk Rose and Universitas, so the two science wonders are there. Forbidden City is there in addition to St. Peter's Basilica, and also the Great Wall is there for some strength support. I'm playing in first position, and as you can see, I am not willing to commit to either wonder or leader here, and I just take the urban growth. I just think there are some interesting cards coming down the row. Confucius and Hammurabi could be very strong leaders to get, and if it should happen that both of those are actually taken away, which I thought is maybe rather unlikely because there are also some wonders that could be taken and generally a lot of strong leaders in the row, but if those two should be taken, then Cleopatra plus Stonehenge would be available both for one civil action for me, which I think is a strong combination. So I felt like I will definitely get a strong leader, and then hopefully also a solid wonder. Pyramids could still be revealed, and if I should miss out on an HA wonder, there are also some interesting H1 wonders to get early in this mix, so I thought I don't want to commit to the Hanging Gardens, and I also don't want to commit to Alex here. And I took the urban growth instead of the Ridgeland to make sure that if Confucius and Hammurabi are taken, that then Cleo and Stonehenge will be available for one. With the Ridgeland, then the Stonehenge would stay in two civil actions, but the Stonehenge is taken away anyway by Arne. He just wants to make sure to have a solid wonder and is hoping to still get a solid leader at his next turn. And the same is true for Pajada, who just takes the Roman roads, which is interesting. He could have maybe gone for Confucius Ridgeland or something, and then maybe still hope to get the pyramids. So I'm not sure if I would go for the Roman roads here. Maybe just Confucius and Ridgeland would be my choice, but Pajada just wants to make sure to have that wonder available. Now it's my turn, and it's a bit of an interesting choice because now I have a lot of leaders actually to choose from. 6 leaders are available for me in the first and the second row, and the two to choose from are probably Confucius and Hammurabi. Both are very strong leaders. For Hammurabi I would have to pay an additional civil action though. And I do think both could work perfectly fine here. One maybe deciding factor was that Arne has the Stonehenge, and I do think Hammurabi is a very strong pairing with the Stonehenge, while Confucius, sometimes it can be fine to have tons of science, but I would say he's not necessarily very synergistic with the Stonehenge, just a strong leader together with a strong wonder, and partly because of that, I was at the end willing to go for Hammurabi here. I elected him. Now the question is whether to build the second lab or the third mine first. And in a situation where you will either skip the HA wonder or maybe take an HA wonder that you rather want to finish late, I do think it's better to start with the second lab, so you don't need that many resources maybe early on when you don't want to invest into your wonder early, and then maybe having more science and being able to go into a technology one turn earlier. For example, if I now build the second lab, I can go for the iron one turn earlier if it should be on the row, and with that I decided to go for the second lab here. I have now one civil action left, and the question is now, do I take the Hanging Gardens or am I actually willing to skip the HA wonder? And when we take a look again at the mix, maybe the potentially 3 best wonders to get early in the game, Forbidden City, Universitas and Silk Road, are all available, and with that I thought I am willing to just increase my population, skip the HA wonder. Either one of those wonders could be available soon, or a copy of Iron, or a copy of Alchemy. And even if none of those things are available, sometimes you will still find something to invest into, but it should be very likely that I will get something useful to invest into, and with that I was willing to skip the Hanging Gardens here. I draw a Blunder. Arne interestingly goes for Cleopatra here. Could have also gone for Confucius. Maybe I would have gone for Confucius here. Of course, it's true that he has already some additional science from the Stonehenge, so maybe it's better to balance it out with getting now some resources from Cleo instead of getting even more science. But I think science in the early game is just very strong, and Confucius maybe works a little bit less conditional than Cleo, or it's a bit easier to just get his value every turn. So I do think I probably would choose Confucius here, but Cleo together with the Stonehenge is certainly a very solid combination. Arne starts with building the second lab here. Could have also built a first step in a mine, I think. But then he wouldn't have had a free population. Pajada goes for Hippocrates here, also gets a solid leader going. And he has the chance to take the Engineering Genius, meaning he has even the option to already finish the Rome roads at the next turn. However, taking all of this means that I at least have a chance to take those knights now for one civil action, and those I also will certainly take, but then it's a bit tricky on how to use the remaining civil actions. That can sometimes be the problem when playing in first position, and then there are still that many HA cards on the first row. And yeah, I mean, warfare sometimes can be a fine technology to take, but when we take a look at the setup of my opponents, I don't think they are going necessarily for something military push early on or something. I have a copy of Knights already, so I don't really want to invest 2 civil actions into warfare. For drama, there are some synergies in the game. There's Bach, Marlene, Antoni Gaudi, Shakespeare, St. Peter's Basilica, Forbidden City to help out with the happy faces. So drama I do think has a lot of potential, and I do think it could be a solid pick here, but with Hammurabi I don't necessarily want to take too many technologies in hand early on that I plan on using later on, because you can easily get into some hand space issues with Hammurabi, especially if you maybe don't have an HA wonder available where you can spend some actions on. So I didn't like taking a technology here, even though the drama could certainly be an interesting technology in the game in general. And then at the end I decided to actually just take the breakthrough here. The science will certainly be useful. It's not ideal to take it for that expensive, but I thought it is still helpful for me to get that science. Alternatively, I could have actually just taken all of those HA yellow cards. That would be 2 food plus having the stockpile available. And if hand space issues wouldn't exist in that game, in the rules, then I maybe would go for that, but I didn't want to have a completely full hand, even though of course I can use a frugality to relatively easily make space in my hand, but still it felt a little bit too heavy. Of course I could also only take 2 cards, increase population, but then I can't maybe use those frugalities very quickly. So at the end I just felt like I want to have the additional science here with the breakthrough, and not ideal, but I just felt like that might be the best option here. Arne seeds and opens the development of civil life. He will use it to increase his population, then starts building the third mine, can build a step for free with Cleo of the Stonehenge, and then he still has 2 civil actions left. He will go for Isabella, actually replaces Cleopatra very quickly, gets now the 1 resource production guaranteed, and if you remember, there's Suez Canal and Cook in the game, so also the colonization ability of Isabella could be quite useful for him this game, and he is also willing to take the drama, has already an additional happy face from the Stonehenge, and as we just saw at my turn, there are certainly some interesting leaders for the drama in the game. Pajada this turn will just finish the Rome roads, has those civil actions out of the way, is willing to delay the second lap in order to finish the Rome roads here. And I was happy to see that there's actually the Silk Road coming down the row. Actually also a copy of Monarchy, but both of those cards will be staying on the second row, so it's not easy to take all of them, or to take both of them. And I certainly wanted to go for the Silk Road. If I don't take it now, there's a very good chance I would have to take none of the cards in front of it, and even if I take none, there's a good chance that it will be discarded, so I have to take it now for 2 civil actions. I do think with having the additional civil action from Hammurabi and with the Silk Road being my first wonder, that is just a very strong wonder for me to get. I have already a breakthrough in hand where I can maybe extract some additional value from. And then I thought about just taking the Monarchy and then either increasing my population or building a step to get out of corruption. The thing is, I'm missing 1 resource to finish the Silk Road already at the next turn, and it could be quite nice being able to finish it. Of course, I could get help from the developments, but I don't know about that. And unless I get help from the developments, but one development that could help me, development of civil life, is already out. I can't invest into the Monarchy immediately. I don't think I can go for a nice revolution here, and with that I decided to pass on the Monarchy. There might be the second copy coming, there might be a copy of Code of Laws coming, and so even though with having the Silk Road you want to get more civil actions, I didn't want to take the Monarchy for 2 civil actions here, and instead I first of all built a step on the Silk Road, and I actually took this Engineering Genius. Of course, the Engineering Genius with the Silk Road is not ideal, but either I can just hope to get another wonder at some point and use it on that wonder, but that was not the main reason behind taking the Engineering Genius here. And the reason is that the Engineering Genius actually gives me the missing resources in order to finish the Silk Road already the next turn, meaning I can invest my civil actions nicely, I have that wonder out of the way and I get the additional science production immediately. Of course I use it then only for 2 resources, but I mean normally if you for example take a rich land for 1 civil action, that's still a somewhat nice deal, getting 2 resources for 1 civil action, so even though it's not ideally used, I still think it's completely fine, and it allows me to just finish the Silk Road, depending on whether there are some interesting cards in the row. I do think it would be very nice to just be able to finish the Silk Road, get out of corruption, spend a lot of actions. Then I have 1 civil action left, and I do think maybe I make a mistake here. Because I could just increase my population, I could just build a step of the Silk Road, or I could take another card in hand. And I think what I maybe should do here is to just build another step of the Silk Road. Get 1 civil action out of the way, that allows me to finish the Silk Road at the next turn while still having 2 civil actions left, meaning I have some freedom to react to the card row. And yeah, so I do think maybe I should do that. Here I decided to actually also take the rich land. And I do think there are of course some arguments for it. I have the Silk Road, I might be able to use it later on for 3 resources. It's a very solid card to take, one that might accelerate how quickly I can upgrade my economy later on. So I do think there are certainly some scenarios where that just plays out perfectly fine, but I do think the inflexibility that the play gives me is a bit too, the cost of that is a bit too high here, because now I have a full hand. I could develop the knights to make space in my hand, but it would be a bit of a commitment. I haven't drawn a knights tactic yet, so the easiest way for me to make space in my hand is to actually build some steps of the Silk Road, use the Engineering Genius, but then I have only 1 civil actions left, meaning I can't react to the row. If there's nothing interesting, then maybe the rich land will turn out to be a fine card for me. But I do think maybe I would prefer to be a bit flexible. Maybe there could be a copy of Iron, maybe another copy of Monarchy or Code of Laws, and I just think it could be nice having the flexibility to take it, and if there is not such a card, and hopefully there will be something useful for me available. So I think I should have just built another step of the Silk Road. I draw the strategic territory here. Arne seeds and opens the development of politics. I have drawn actually 2 legion tactics out of that development. Arne takes the irrigation here, goes for the Monarchy, builds 1 step of the Stonehenge, develops the Monarchy, and then builds another step of the Stonehenge. Interestingly, he goes for the irrigation here. Could have also taken the Iron, but the irrigation is available more cheaply. He has already some additional resource production from Isabella, and who knows, if he has already drawn some colonies, then it might be important for him to start some additional food production to be able to rebuild some units that he sends away. Pajada builds the second lab, increases his population, and he will just take the iron, has enough science to invest into it at the next turn. And now it is my turn, and we can see here that I do get a bit punished here, because I do think I would have really liked to be able to just take that Code of Laws, develop it, finish the Silk Road, which would have been possible if I built a step at the turn before. Now sadly I don't have that flexibility to react on the card draw, meaning I can't go for the Code of Laws, and I will stay on a less amount of civil actions for a while longer. And with having the Silk Road, it's just quite strong to have more civil actions. I also didn't have the chance to take that masonry, which of course if I would have built that step already also wouldn't be that great, but I just don't have the freedom to react to the card draw here. If I don't want to develop the knights, I'm kind of forced to finish the Silk Road here for 4 civil actions, and it is nice that I can finish the Silk Road, but here I maybe should have stayed a bit more flexible at the turn before. Nonetheless, I can get the Silk Road going, which is now nice. I get some culture and science production. From the next turn on, maybe I will have a chance to use some yellow cards. There would actually be another strong yellow card on the row now that I could take, another copy of Breakthrough. But then I again would have a full hand, and maybe I learned my lesson at that point, and so I decided to just increase my population. Taking the Swordsman also would be very interesting. Maybe I should have considered it. I could have developed it with the Breakthrough and to make a lot of space in my hand, and I have 2 Legion tactics. I don't know, the other players didn't reveal any tactic yet, none of them has a copy of Knights. I don't know if I will see a Knights tactic soon. I might need some military at some point, and so with that I do think that maybe taking the Swordsman could be interesting here, maybe even the reserves potentially, but I think maybe rather the Swordsman. I thought maybe there's some hope that if I don't take Breakthrough or Swordsman, then the Code of Law stays on 2 civil actions for Arne. Maybe that makes it that he doesn't take it, and Pajada doesn't have that much science, especially after investments to iron. Maybe if there are some resource or food revealed from the developments, he has some issues getting out of corruption, and I was hoping that maybe he then could potentially leave me that Code of Laws so that I could still have a chance of getting it at the next turn. So at the end I decided to skip the Swordsman here, but in order to, if there is a military pressure going on, I could potentially miss those swordsmen later on. I draw another plunder. Arne takes the Breakthrough, develops the irrigation, gets some food production going now, increases his population, so he doesn't take the Code of Laws, and it also won't be on the discard spot on Pajada's turns. Let's see if he will deny it. He sees the development of trade routes are revealed, so now he has maybe even more issues to get out of corruption. He could maybe just go for 2 iron upgrades, take the Code of Laws, but if you know Pajada, you maybe know a leader that he likes quite a lot, and here you also know what he likes to do with that leader, and that leader is Barbarossa, and Pajada often goes just for a lot of warriors or a lot of infantry units. It's certainly something that you will see very often when you play against him, and so he goes for Barbarossa. He also sadly takes the Code of Laws, takes that card away from me, goes for another warrior, and is now at 3 strength. But if you remember, there's the Great Wall in the game. If he gets that wonder, he could get a bit threatening relatively soon. And I mean, he had a lot of food saved up. I do think Barbarossa is very strong here for him. Let's see if he also has a tactic that he might maybe can reveal at the next turn. Now it's my turn. I will start the turn by increasing my population. That already gets me out of corruption. That would be a turn where normally I would maybe just like to start investing into something. Sadly, the second copy of Iron and both of the alchemies aren't on the row for me. If they would be in the first or second row, I might just start some upgrades here. But now the question is, how do I invest my civil actions? I don't have that much hand space. I can't just easily take a lot of cards in hand. And here I at the end thought the best option might be to take and develop the masonry, because that at least will basically prepare I spend some actions now that will help me later on, because I will save some resources. If there's still a lot of interesting wonders that I could take, so I might save some civil actions. So I basically prepare for better turns later on, now that I can't really get some production going. I think that at least still sets me up quite nicely. Not ideal going for the masonry after having finished the Silk Road, but still maybe quite fine. And developing a technology allows me to use the Breakthrough, meaning after doing that I actually have 2 hand space again. And I thought I certainly want to take the patriotism here, a strong card with the Silk Road, and also one that helps me setting up some military, especially Pajada. If he indeed gets the Great Wall or just goes for a bit more units, might soon be quite threatening, and I thought additional military action and resources for the military could just be quite useful for me. And then the decision for the end of the turn was whether I would like to take Eleanor now, or whether I would rather like to wait for Nostradamus here. Of course, there's also Joan of Arc, but there hasn't been a free religion revealed yet. And also I saw that monarchy coming down the row, and I was hoping that Pajada might not take it. He might. Maybe he will do a revolution with the Barbarossa. He can then get out of corruption potentially during that revolution. But I was hoping I might get the monarchy, and I also thought it might be nice for me to invest into the monarchy, even though it will be a bit late. And then I have already my third military action, in which case I value both Eleanor and Nostradamus more highly than Joan of Arc, and also Eleanor is a nice transitional leader. I can keep Hammurabi for another turn and then elect her at the end of H1. And then if I replace her quickly, then the additional civil actions that she gives me will be a nice amount of civil actions per turn, in addition to all of the other things that she does. And yeah, it was a close decision for me. At the moment I don't have any event in hand, which is of course for both of those leaders a bit of a downside. The strength from Nostradamus might be quite relevant. However, I was thinking about my next turn, and I thought it might be a bit tricky to have the necessary amount of civil actions to do everything if I now don't take a leader. And I thought about if maybe then I just take another copy of Richland here. But at the end because of that, thought I want to take Eleanor in hand, because again, with another rich land, I might have some hand space issues. I could, of course, play the patriotism at the next turn. But especially if the swordsmen are available to take for me at the next turn, then it could be quite relevant, having spent the civil action on a leader already. So at the end I went with Eleanor, but it was a close call, and maybe I could have also waited for Nostradamus, or maybe at the end just gone with Joan of Arc, but I do think now that we are that late in the age, I like Eleanor more than Joan of Arc. I draw the immigration, which I was happy about because it's an event to push for Eleanor. Arne seeds and the development of religion is revealed. With that, Joan of Arc would have been a bit more of a solid pick. Arne will develop the cartography this turn. He has seeded some of those events that are in there, actually 3 of them, meaning with him going for the cartography and also going for Isabella early on, it's certainly possible that there are some colonies coming. He is also revealing, building another warrior, revealing the fighting band tactic, takes the cultural heritage and increases his population. As you can see, the Great Wall was revealed after my turn, and I said that Pajada is nicely prepared for it, so now I was interested to see whether he will take it, and I also thought he might very likely go for it. He can use Barbarossa one more time, going up to 6 strength. He has the fighting band tactic available, and then he will just take the Great Wall, build a step of it. He could have gone for another upgrade, but then he would be missing 1 resource to finish the Great Wall at the next turn. And if he finishes the Great Wall at the next turn, he is going up to 10 strength, and who knows, maybe he has kept an aggression in hand, so that he could potentially punish either me or Arne if we are not able to keep up. I was thinking maybe I should have rather waited for Nostradamus, as the additional strength might now certainly be quite useful, but on the other hand we will actually also see at my next turn that the additional civil action that I now have, thanks to already having taken the leader, will make quite a difference. My turn, I won't use my politics phase as I want to save the event for Eleanor, and then this turn I start by playing the patriotism with the Silk Road bonus. I will elect Eleanor. I will take this monarchy first of all. I develop it, and then I take and develop the swordsman. I can build 2 of them. I can go for an upgrade. It's now just enough to get me out of corruption. I still have a military action left that I will use to play the legion tactic to be a bit stronger. Next turn I want to start seeding, and then if the event deck is flipped, maybe the additional strength might be useful. And also I have now 5 military actions, but it's only because of the patriotism with the Silk Road bonus. So it's also an opportunity to sacrifice now some H1 draws instead of some H2 draws later on. And as you can see, I wouldn't have been able to do that exact same turn if I also would have needed to spend a civil action on my leader, then I maybe would have need to skip monarchy. So at the end I was fine about my choice of going for Eleanor. Hopefully with being on 3 military actions and with being able to seed at my next turn I can get some draws and get the Eleanor engine rolling, or if not then maybe there will be an early H2 leader on the road so that I can get the additional civil actions out of her quickly. So you can see I skipped the iron here, but yeah, I just thought I want to set up those swordsmen. I want to have the monarchy. It's relatively late anyway. There's a railroad, which can be fine with iron, but even stronger with coal mines. So I was at this point willing to skip the iron here. Now it's Arne's turn. Oh, and one thing I forgot to mention during my turn, and that is that there's one issue about my turn, and that issue is that the age will end, I will lose 2 yellow tokens, and I will actually have an uprising issue. So of course you could argue that maybe I shouldn't have invested into that many swordsmen already. There's no copy of theology left that can help me. But the thing is, at this point there are really a lot of developments that can help me out here, and when we take a look at the remaining ones, development of settlement would just give me an additional population and would solve my uprising issue. Development of agriculture would give me additional food. With that I would have just enough food to increase my population and get out of uprising issues. Development of crafts would give me enough resources to actually either take and finish Forbidden City or take and finish the St. Peter's Basilica, which would solve my uprising issue. And development of markets, I could either take food or resources. So only development of science and development of warfare are the developments that don't help me out of that. If development of planning is revealed, then it's guaranteed that one event will be among them that will help me out of that uprising issue. So it's a relatively good chance that I will get help here, and with that I was willing to play the turn, as I thought I have some decent chances to get help, but it could certainly be a bit annoying if I don't get help from the developments here. And now Arne seeds, so I was excited to see what development will be revealed. And sadly the development of warfare is revealed. I don't have a free population, and sadly, unless I get help from an H1 event, I might have to destroy something during my next turn. Arne takes the iron, doesn't want to be the second player who needs to wait for the coal. Instead he just gets some upgrades going, goes up to 6 resource production. Is now very low on science though, but has a government form already. Now H2 starts and it's Pajada's turn. He will just finish the Great Wall, goes up to 10 strength, takes the alchemy. Might be a bit late to invest into the alchemy. Maybe it could be fine to just take the reserves here. Those might allow for another Barbarossa activation. And he still has to upgrade his mines. I'm not sure how much I like this alchemy pick. Maybe it was also a small denial, as I, with the masonry, could maybe just go for 2 upgrades to spend something and get a lot of production going. So maybe that was part of the reasoning here. Now it's my turn, and I will seed the immigration into the deck, hoping that maybe there is something revealed that could help me here. Sadly, it's not. The historic territory is revealed, or it would actually something that could help me, even though I would not be able to rebuild the swordsman nicely, and then if I don't want to be in danger of an aggression from Pajada, might have to rebuild something, but still with the Suez Canal in there it could be nice, but I wasn't willing to split more than 1 unit in my card, meaning at the end Arne is able to win it for a warrior and paying 1 resource with Isabella. And now it's my turn. I sadly can't take the development of warfare, and the question is what to do with this turn now. I sadly need to destroy something, and I thought, even though I didn't get the additional resources to maybe just take and finish a wonder, it could still be nice to go for a wonder here. And I thought about Forbidden City and St. Peter's Basilica here. And especially with being on monarchy, I do think the additional civil action from the Forbidden City could be quite nice. However, here I actually decided to take the St. Peter's Basilica over it after destroying a farm, which at some point might cause me some famine issues, but if I go for either Forbidden City or St. Peter's Basilica, that population will also hopefully soon be happy again, so that I can fix the famine issue also again. Certainly not an ideal way, destroying it and rebuilding it, but I didn't want to sacrifice anything else from my civilization. The St. Peter's Basilica has 2 advantages here. First of all, I can build the first 2 steps now in one civil action with the masonry, and that is actually enough to get me out of corruption. With the Forbidden City I would not be able to get out of corruption. And I actually have just pushed the immigration, and there of course the St. Peter's Basilica might help me winning that, while the Forbidden City wouldn't. And with that, even though I really would have liked to get the civil action here, was leaning towards the St. Peter's Basilica, which at least will give me some additional culture production along the way. So I will build the 2 steps to get out of corruption. When I thought about the choice between Forbidden City and St. Peter's Basilica, I thought about it, if I go for St. Peter's Basilica, I can maybe just take that copy of Code of Laws and I can get my 6th civil action from there. And I first thought that's what I'm going to do. The thing is, I don't have that much science. I have some science saved up, but what you can see in the row is that a copy of coal is coming down. And both of my opponents have already committed into iron. I was hoping that they won't deny that coal. And if I invest into coal, then a lot of science is already gone. I might still need some other techs, maybe selective breeding, scientific method, or military technology. And so I might just not have enough science to invest into the Code of Law soon. But what I do have is the Silk Road, and with the Silk Road, that copy of Reserves might just end up being something like a Reserves 2, which is a very solid card to take for one civil action. And with that, I thought the Reserves here just gives me some guaranteed value, even if I find nice ways from H2 to invest my science into. And so I decided against taking the Code of Laws here, even though of course with being on monarchy it can be bad being stuck on 5 civil actions if I should maybe end up going into H3, but there's also a copy of Justice System that could help me out with that. I draw some cards here. Prosperity, which could be a fine event to seed. The vast territory may be a bit tricky against Arne, who has the cartography. Arne seeds, the wealthy territory is revealed. I actually pushed the price here a little bit, maybe unnecessary, but with the Suez Canal in there, I thought Arne would at least be willing to send a warrior on a resource again with having a nice food production, and so I wanted to make sure that he at least has to pay that little extra bit. And then he builds a warrior, goes back up to 4 strength, increases his population, takes the scientific method, wants to make sure to potentially already go for that at the next turn. There's Newton coming down the row, so that could potentially be a very strong setup for him. And also he has now already 2 colonies, meaning Suez Canal also has already a lot of potential for him, and Pajada seeds in the next colony is revealed. And as you can see, I was actually willing to bid quite a lot, my whole army, but without the defense card. Maybe I could have also sent a defense card away, but I probably thought about my next turn and how I could then potentially defend. I don't remember it exactly, and I think I wasn't completely certain if I would be willing to pay that price, but what I really wanted to make sure is that none of my opponents wins it for cheap. But Pajada is Barbarossa, for him the vast territory would be great, for Arne it would make a potential Suez Canal even bigger. 8 is at the end not enough to win it, and but at least Arne has to pay quite a lot for it. He sends 2 warriors away, 1 colonization card, and 6 resources, so really a lot. Is now at 1 strength, and he has now a lot of colonies, a very nice yellow bank, but he is now very low in strength, and I have a war in hand and an aggression in hand at that point. So at my next turn I could think about deploying either that war or the aggression and potentially punish Arne for that very high bid. Pajada develops the Code of Laws this turn, takes the Universitas if he doesn't go for an upgrade or something, and then instead builds the step. He can finish the Universitas already at the next turn. I do think that additional science production will help him out quite a bit. Now it's my turn, and as you can see I declare war here against Arne. I thought about playing the raid, just getting some additional resource immediately, but the thing is, I thought that there might be a chance that Arne could actually defend against that aggression. Of course, it looks weird after he has sent that much away, but he has a lot of resources, so paying 6 is maybe not the biggest cost for him, and he could have made a decision to actively keep defense cards in hand to be able to defend against an aggression if he has an H2 and an H1 colonization card. And then he would be able to defend, so the aggression could just do nothing, and the war is basically guaranteed to do something unless Arne gets maybe some help from the events. But if he doesn't get any help, while he has the cultural heritage and with that can invest into Rifleman, he has only enough resource to build one Rifleman. It would only be +3 strength. He could also just build 2 warriors, but it also would only be +3 strength. So already with being at 8 strength, I am almost guaranteed to win that war. I will finish the St. Peter's Basilica. When I finish the St. Peter's Basilica, I can't go for a coal upgrade because I don't have enough civil actions to develop it. Oh, actually I do. So I could now take the coal, develop it, play the reserves, play the rich land, go for 1 upgrade. But I instead decided against playing the reserves this turn and building the swordsman. Those 2 additional strength will very likely net me something. Arne has the option to invest all of his science into something, maybe scientific method or rifleman. But he still has the 2 production and he still has the cartography. I thought 4 strength is likely the amount that he will go up to, and then the 2 strength makes it that I not only can take the cartography, but also +2 science in addition that I will steal from one of my opponents. And with this turn, I am using the reserves now and can still use the rich land later on, meaning I can use the Silk Road bonus on both of those cards, hopefully. Meaning that while I miss out on 2 resources from delaying the upgrade, I still basically get 1 resource because of spreading out my yellow cards more. And so I at the end thought it should be the best call, but I certainly will take the coal in hand. And then with 2 civil actions left, I decided to also take the breakthrough with the Silk Road bonus that has the chance to give me 4 science, which is quite strong. I could have denied the Rifleman, but I have Swordsman and I just didn't want to give up on the breakthrough here. I keep some events in hand that I can push, and also the aggression, because I thought Arne, when I steal his cartography, is still quite a bit behind. He would be at 3, I would be at 11, meaning the difference would be the same, or even 1 more than it was at the beginning of my turn when I was at 8 to 1. No, it's actually the same, then it will be 11. No, it's actually 1 more, 8 to 1, then 11 to 3, so I might still have some decent chances to actually pull that aggression off. Arne will increase his population, builds a warrior, so he isn't going for a rifleman. Instead, he will actually go for Newton, plays the cultural heritage, develops the scientific method already, making sure that he has developed that technology. He will now be going down to 0 science, lose the cartography, but at least when he then goes for some upgrades and with Newton, he will get some science back very quickly, and then he takes the wave of nationalism and a rifleman. Now it's Pajada's turn. He plays a blunder here, and as you can see, Arne is actually able to defend, so it was likely the case that he sent the cards away so that he couldn't get punished by an aggression from me. Sadly for him, I actually already had a war in hand, so that's a bit unfortunate, and now Pajada actually got rid of his defense cards, which I of course was happy to see, because I still have the raid in hand that I very likely will now be able to deploy successfully at my next turn. Pajada finishes the Universitas, goes up to 5 science production, which is quite strong, takes the selective breeding and the strategy. And now it is my turn, and I decide here to indeed go for that raid. First of all, I will steal from the war over technology 2 science and a cartography, and then I will deploy that aggression. Of course, that is basically a counter strategy from Arne. He is on purpose now losing 2 wars and aggression so that I can't use Eleanor's ability consistently. No, that's of course not the case, but yeah, it's of course a little bit not that great to not see it with Eleanor, but of course the war and the aggression gave me some great value, and I was very happy that I could pull them off. And yeah, for Pajada, who now didn't get a successful aggression, but me getting a successful war and a successful aggression, I was thinking that the game is going into a good direction for me. So I can destroy those 2 HA labs, making it quite a bit more costly for Arne to go up to maybe 2 labs again, which he maybe wants to do with Newton. I then this turn will develop the coal. As you can see, I won't use the breakthrough, as I this turn want to use the rich land with the Silk Road bonus, and I have my government form already, meaning 9 science is enough to go for any tech that I want, so I can just delay the breakthrough here, and then I go for an upgrade, and as you can see, I will just take the railroad here. And I mean, I have the masonry, I have the coal, soon I will maybe already be able to build that, and then I think that's just a great wonder for me to get. The strength make me even more threatening, and yeah, so that's nice. The only bad thing about this turn is that I now have, after having disbanded this farm early on, will now start having some famine, but I am at least producing a decent amount of culture, so I was at the end not... I felt like that's a price that is worth paying here instead of destroying something and building a farm or something. Arne builds a lab, he has exactly enough resources to do that, is now at least at 5 science production again, but those those wars and the aggression certainly have done now quite some damage to him. Nonetheless, he has Newton, he still has some solid production, and he still has that big Suez Canal potential, so at the moment I do think he still is perfectly in the game, even though he is still somewhat vulnerable, is missing 1 science to get into a military tech, so for 2 more turns he might still be a bit vulnerable, and it will depend on how heavily he maybe gets hit by stuff until then. And as you can see, he indeed gets hit by something here. Pajada this time is able to deploy in a successful aggression, the Annex, and that's quite a big one here because he actually takes the vast territory 1 away, and stealing 3 yellow tokens is quite a big swing, especially with the Suez Canal in the game on top. I mean, winning a war over territory and stealing 3 yellow tokens is normally a really great achievement. Now Pajada just gets that with that aggression, so now Arne, now those aggressions of course are really adding up, so despite his still strong position, those might now some permanent damages that he might not that easily recover from. Pajada goes for the strategy, goes for even more strength, makes sure to draw some more cards, and then he upgrades the mind, can use Barbarossa to get out of corruption, takes the breakthrough and the rifleman. Now it is my turn, I don't have any wars or aggressions any longer, meaning this turn will push again, but it was a bit of a question, what do I want to push? The Prosperity could be a very safe event, I have St. Peter's Basilica, at the moment I also really need some food, so it would just be a helpful event. The thing is, I have now actually stolen the cartography. I have a colonization card in hand, I planned on keeping Eleanor for at least 1 additional turn, meaning I will get some additional draws, and with that I thought maybe I have a shot here to go into the vast territory, and if I push the Prosperity first then the deck might flip, but it might be good if the vast territory is maybe revealed relatively quickly, depending on what tactic I draw. It could also help me making a transition. And so I was not certain, should I push the more safe event or maybe the event that has more upside. For me, at the end I decided to go for the vast territory here, as I thought maybe I have some decent chances to win that. And also I was happy about my draw. I draw the fortifications tactic, and now if I should get a copy of cannons, that territory indeed might help me to transition into the tactic very nicely. The pestilence is revealed, and I sadly don't have a free population, meaning I have to destroy something. And I do think maybe I do make a mistake here on my choice, because as you can see, I decided to lose the religion, meaning I dropped from 3 to 1 happy phase. And the pestilence is not too bad in the regard that I am back to my the further area of the yellow bank, meaning I don't have any famine issues any longer, so that actually helps me in a way. And oftentimes losing a religion is fine because it doesn't disrupt your economical production, and maybe if you don't need the happy phase immediately, that's somewhat fine, but maybe something that I forgot about here, I think I maybe just forgot about it, is that the immigration is actually coming, and yeah, with 3 happy phases at the moment at least I would still be part of that, while now I might not, in the near future I might not very quickly have the ability to maybe rebuild some happy phases, and I do think a population would be very helpful for me here, so I do think maybe I should have just lost a mine here. Of course, losing the production is bad, but I could have still gone for a turn like this, where I developed a scientific method, go for an upgrade, take reserves and Bach, and even with losing the mine, with playing the reserves, I would still be able to finish the railroad at the next turn, so I could still do all of the economic developments, and with having the railroad, it can be fine playing on 2 mines. Of course, more production is always better, but I do think the religion, with the immigration coming, is just better to keep. And also with having Bach in hand, It's not guaranteed that I will be able to go into Opera. The other one got discarded, so the copy of Opera might certainly be taken away. But I just took Bach here because he will at least produce me 2 culture with Anthony Gaudi. Now that I lost to religion, I don't know how much value he will give me. Before I opened the Pestilence and decided to lose to religion, I rather thought about taking Anthony Gaudi here. But I'm not sure which leader I preferred, because being able to upgrade it religion to Opera is still a nice ability from Bach to have. But now losing the religion also, I now have to maybe build an Opera directly, so that also basically costs me some resource if I might be able to do that later on. So I think I should have either probably lost a mine or maybe even a lab, but I think keeping the science production here with the hope of maybe getting to an H3 government form at some point is probably best, but maybe a mine I could have just lost here. I don't elect Bach right now. First of all, I maybe don't have the nicest things to do with the civil actions that I would get, and I also wanted to get another seat with Eleanor. I get some draws, another colonization card, which I was happy to see. Also another colony, actually. Arne upgrades another lab, takes the frugality, interestingly. Looking like he maybe doesn't have a colony for Suez, or maybe isn't willing to risk going for Suez. Here I can't finish it quickly, even though I do think if he has a strong H2 colony here, I probably would still go for Suez, so that might be an indicator that he doesn't have such a colony. Instead, he takes the frugality, which will certainly help him soon with his population, develops the drama to make space in his hand, and then takes the organized religion. Let's see if pajada will go for the Suez Canal, who also has a colony, and pajada goes for another aggression, and yeah, at this point Arne certainly might get flashbacks from that first game from the first batch, where he at some point actually resigned against me and Danny Boy. I do think this time he has built up a strong enough position so that he should play on, but now again getting hit by that raid is just, yeah, it's just very expensive and a very big setback, and definitely also unfortunate for him that I and pajada were able to draw that many wars and aggressions to punish him. So he, I think, got overly heavily punished to bit on that vast territory that he actually lost now to pajada. So that decision certainly cost him a lot here, but with him probably having the defense cards to defend against an aggression from me, I do think it was a reasonable risk to take from him. Pajada takes the constitutional monarchy here, uses Barbarossa 2 more times, so has in total gotten a lot of activations out of him, is now at 18 strength, so still very threatening, goes for a mine upgrade to get out of corruption, starts some upgrades to selective breeding. At the next turn is still missing a bit of science to get into the constitutional monarchy. Now it is my turn. I decide to seed here. I thought about pushing the autonomous territory into the deck, and maybe that could be interesting. I have another colonization card, but I also thought I might not be able to win both of those colonies, and depending on how things go, it could happen that maybe the Suez Canal could actually turn out to be an option for me, and I didn't want to take that option away, and with that rather decided on the push the prosperity here into the deck. The event revealed is actually a colony. I was willing, I think, to bid 1 swordsman and 1 card, because I know that there's a lot stronger colony coming. On the other hand, with winning now immediately a colony, that Suez Canal option actually is starting to look quite a bit interesting. And so I was at the end happy to win that one, even though I have to send 1 of my colonization cards away. Then this turn I can play the reserves with the Silk Road bonus, finish the railroad with the masonry, and of course now you might think, wait, how is it possible to take the Suez Canal? You don't have the civil actions for it. But now the civil actions that I get when replacing Eleanor are actually coming in extremely handy. I can elect Bach, and then I can take the Suez Canal, and now I have exactly enough resources to finish the Suez Canal at the next turn, again very efficiently with the masonry, and then get the autonomous territory already at the next turn. I thought that is just too big of a boost. I need to go for that. I was willing to take some risks. I could have taken the first copy of cannons, but there's another one coming. I could have taken that copy of selective breeding. It's the last food solution in the deck, but it will stay on 2 civil actions for Arne, and I think it's unlikely that Arne will go for Gremlin and Conmon and stuff, so I thought it shouldn't land on the discard spot and probably also won't deny it, so I thought I might just get it for cheap at the next turn, and then I just thought that it's just too big of a boost. The Masonry doing some very big work here. Only the Masonry together with Eleanor allowed me to finish the Railroad here and immediately take another Wonder despite having already quite a few of them. And now, of course, even though I'm not prepared to win the Immigration, the decision of not destroying a mine in hindsight maybe worked out quite well, because if I would have lost a mine, I would not have enough resource to finish the Suez Canal already the next turn, which I do think is the best option for me now that I have the necessary resources. Keep the colony, the fortifications, and the colonization card. I draw even another colony, but that shouldn't be better than the autonomous, but maybe I can push it into the deck. Arne offers an international trade agreement to Pajada, so both of them gain some additional food and resources. Arne will this turn develop the cavalryman, plays the wave, builds 2 of them, and he has drawn the Hussars tactic, so now finally he can maybe catch a bit of a break. I mean, he still could get hit by an aggression if he has no defense card in hand, but he has now somewhat stabilized, also takes that copy of cannons. And with that also denies that one from Pajada, who has the Great Wall, so probably potentially important denial by Arne here. Pajada cedes, the scientific breakthrough is revealed, meaning that all of the players actually gain 5 additional signs out of it. The immigration isn't revealed yet. Pajada can now use Robespierre as a nice transitional leader, can save 6 science and then potentially maybe replace him relatively quickly in H3. Could have gone for Maria as well, so he has some decent food production, a nice yellow bank. So it's an interesting choice, but at the moment it looks like he might remain the strongest, so Maria might not give him that many resources, and 6 science saved immediately, and also the option of going for Conmon already this turn is maybe the end just value enough. He then takes the opera, meaning the second copy is taken away from me with Bach, and I might have to hope for movies here. And he also goes for another food upgrade. There is the red cross in the game, he has the architecture, so he might be relatively well set up for that. Now H2 starts, and I decided to actually push the developed territory here. Maybe I could have had a chance to prepare for the immigration, and as you can see, Arne, after losing 1 religion to the raid, is now actually on 2 happy faces. So now again, while the mine on one hand was now nice to keep, it still feels quite bad being on 1 instead of 3 happy faces. It's quite a big swing now, not getting the population. Actually, both of my opponents getting the population. I was not happy about it, but I also decided that I don't want to get out of my way on maybe building that religion. I could potentially, finish the Suez Canal, get resource from autonomous, destroy something, build a religion. Maybe I could have done it, but I instead rather pushed. I got some culture out of that and decided to focus on other things. But I'm not sure, maybe I could have gone for something like this. The immigration is now revealed, and yeah, it is quite a big swing. I'm not certain, because I will now set up some food production this turn, but gaining a population and preventing both of my opponents from gaining a population, potentially, of course, my opponents, Arne, might go for the organized religion, maybe sensing something about immigration, and then at the end it wouldn't give me anything, so it's nothing guaranteed, and with that maybe at the end it's fine to not go for that. I finished the Suez Canal here, I get the autonomous, and as you can see I gain some additional resources, which will help me to already, as I said, go for food upgrade this turn. However, it was still a tough decision to make, because there's 1 card in a row where I really have to think about if I maybe just want to reach out for that, and that is the second copy of cannons. I have the fortifications tactic, I know that the vast territory 2 is coming, which now, with having the Suez Canal, I really want to win, and it would be perfect to make a transition into fortifications, but if I don't have cannons in hand, and maybe the rockets are not there in time, then I would not be able to make the transition. Maybe I win the colony, but I might have to rebuild some swordsmen with men, which would be not ideal. And additionally, the other player who hasn't cannons yet is Pajada, and here's the Great Wall. It could really have some big potential for him to have those cannons available, and could make him quite threatening, so it could be fine to maybe just take selective breeding and the cannons. I even thought about taking and developing just a system, taking cannons and skipping the selective breeding, but I felt like that also could potentially backfire, and then maybe I can somehow manage to spend some mines, but I didn't like it too much. The thing is, I felt that I have some decent chances for myself to be fine. Or that I will be fine if I skip the cannons now, and that has partly to do with Arne revealing the Hussars tactic, because that makes it that I cannot only get rockets from H3 to help me getting into a tactic, but I can also copy the Hussars and just go into tanks. So the chances that I get one of those tanks, at least not too late, are somewhat decent. Nonetheless, Pajada has the Great Wall, and there's still also the denial factor. Do I want to give him that copy of cannon so that he can plan with it? The reason why I at the end was willing to skip it is that when we take a look at Pajada, he actually has no cards in hand right now. Meaning he can't have a tactic right now available for those cannons. Of course he might get lucky, draw some wars, maybe positional army soon, but with him having no cards in hand and it just being random now whether he will draw some military heavy cards very soon or not, and with me being prepared for both hussars and fortifications, I was willing to not take the cannons here and instead make sure to already start some food production. And in addition to that, I also made sure to go for the justice system. With investing into that, maybe it gets a bit harder to get into an H3 government form, but I actually still have enough science to, for example, get into democracy at the next turn. And it's just nice getting the additional civil action already now, and the additional blue tokens are also quite helpful with the autonomous territory. And then I have still enough civil actions left to go for one farm upgrade here. I draw some cards. The military alliance impact of wonders with my many wonders is actually quite a nice one. Also potentially interesting tactics, so some interesting draws here. Arne takes the architecture, will develop it for free with Newton, and then there's a very interesting leader for him on the row, and that is Marlene Dietrich. And he will grab her immediately, builds a drama, and get some culture production started. She helps him with the happy faces at the moment, and not only that, with building a cavalryman, she also immediately helps him with the strength. He's actually now the strongest, so Marlene is certainly helping him here to maybe get a lot of things that he still needed to fix done in one go, getting culture production, happy faces, and strength. Pajada makes sure to be the strongest again, starts upgrading a bunch of warriors to riflemen. He's now a bit threatening, but he has no cards in hand, so of course he could just draw something, and I and Arne need to make sure maybe he's nonetheless to be prepared against an aggression, but it's at the moment he didn't save an aggression or something that he can now potentially go for. He then takes the cannons and some yellow cards, so he is setting up for potentially maybe going into a bit of a military heavy direction. Now we are also already at the beginning of H3, so let's maybe take a look at the overview. Overall, I was quite happy about my position. I have 10 resource production, I have the culture lead, I have some decent science production, decent amount of actions. My weakness is the low amount of population. That certainly might bite me, but first of all, I might have a chance to win the vast territory and maybe make a transition and then have some help with the population, and also I can potentially maybe disband some mines at some point. So I was hoping that I will be somewhat fine and generally thought I have a very solid position here. But Pajada also has a solid position. He definitely could get quite threatening with the military, has also a very solid amount of actions available, and with the architecture plus maybe the opera also has the ability to set up some culture production. Arne probably has the weakest position. He just got hit quite heavily by wars and aggressions. Marlene maybe helps him now, and he can just go for some more dramas, but he's very low in actions at the moment. Just being on his house might not be enough to survive on the military long term, so I do think he still has quite a hill to climb. However, culture-wise, he's not really that far behind, and who knows, Marlene Dietrich can do a lot of things, so he might still make a comeback here, but I do think at this point it looks quite difficult for him. At my turn, I could potentially push the impact of wonders, but for the moment there is no copy of rockets or tanks on the row, and I thought with that it could be better to maybe delay the reveal of the colony by a little bit. With that I offered a military alliance to Arne. I certainly will take the air forces here. I just want to not give that copy to my opponents. And then there's the question, how greedy do I want to play it? And I decided to play it a bit greedily, but I also think it's maybe somewhat fine, because I will actually take and develop the democracy here, making it that I have now even 9 actions, even more cultural production, so that gives me another very big boost when I go for that. I do think it's important and also just generally strong to go for another lab upgrade that gets me out of corruption. Why is it important? It's important because now I'm at 8 science, meaning at least I have enough science to go into rockets, sadly not into tanks, so if I get hit by something, and that was the thing that I was afraid of, and where I thought of maybe whether I should take that risk or not. If pajada has no evolver culture, then if I don't get the rockets, it's certainly a bit awkward for me. So at least there could be the Manhattan Project, there might be some ways to defend myself, but it's likely that I would lose the war, and it would be annoying to increase my strength if there are neither rockets nor Manhattan Project available for me. So maybe I could do something different, only take the democracy in hand, but it's just such a big boost, and pajada had only a draw out of 3, and with that I was willing to take that risk here. Now I still have 2 civil actions left, and I decided to just take both of those yellow cards. I could have gone for a mine upgrade, but as I said, it might be important to have those bronze mines available to delete them later on, and so I rather just took those cards. With the rich land I can either just go for a cheap mine upgrade later on, but I thought more about, with the rich land, actually building a selective breeding to still get a solid amount of food production going. I get some draws now. I draw the impact of technology, which could turn out to be a fine impact, also a colonization card, which is nice. Arne seeds, the prosperity is revealed. As you can see, that copy of rockets is coming down the row, which I was hoping that it might be available for me at my turn. The prosperity sadly doesn't give me the most happy face, the most food, but it's still a somewhat fine event. Arne will go for upgrading a lab. With that, he actually has just enough science to get into democracy at the next turn. Builds another drama, and I mean, if he can get into democracy, build more dramas, he certainly starts some nice cultural production. Then, of course, there's the danger that he might get punished by the military, but it might give him a nice boost here. Pajada this turn uses Robespierre for another revolution, gets into communism, and he didn't go for a war and aggression. Probably he didn't draw a war. I do think if he would have, maybe he could have gone for one, but maybe it would also be a bit too costly for him. The communism revolution is very nice. Now he can actually take Mandela afterwards, replacing Robespierre very quickly. I do think his Robespierre pick worked out very nicely. He did 2 revolutions very quickly. Got 6 culture actually also out of Robespierre, and now has an early age 3 leader, and Mandela I think is quite strong for him. Pajada has now, same as I, a lot of civil actions, but also a lot of military actions. He starts building an opera, builds a religion, takes the urban growth. As you can see, he has actually corruption, but it's only food corruption, so maybe that's somewhat fine with the amount of food that he has saved up, and the amount of food that he has saved up is also making it that he can actually take and finish the red cross with the architecture that he has in hand at the next turn, so that could potentially be a very strong option for him. And now he's also starting to produce quite a nice amount of culture, so I thought him getting the communism and that early Mandela certainly does give him a bit of a boost here. Now it's my turn. I started by seeding the impact of wonders, which potentially could turn out to be even a bit better for pajada, but who I thought I am fighting for the first place with him at the moment, so I thought about maybe seeding impact of tech first, but it's just unclear how nice that will be. So I started by seeding impact of wonders, which is a safe impact and also for certain a good one against Arne. And I was really hoping that the vast territory 2 will be revealed now, because now I could send some swordsmen away, transition into the fortifications tactic with the rockets that are available. I have just enough science, and then I do think that helps me a lot with my population and how my turn plays out in general. Sadly though, I don't hit the coin flip here, and instead a politics of strength is revealed, which cost me my next draws. And pajada gets a lot of H3 draws, which I was not happy to see, because now he might have a war. Of course, now I have the rockets, and maybe with that I'm fine and somewhat safe, but still I wasn't happy to see it, because now I do think it would have been a very nice time to see the colony. First I thought, okay, maybe it's not too bad missing out on the draws, because I can just maybe build 2 rockets and reveal the fortifications tactic, but I then thought about what do I actually want to do for my turn, and as you will see, I at the end will actually only build one rocket. Maybe I should have built more and used the opportunity that I had to build some units without missing out on draws now that I miss out on them anyway. But at the end I will play the reserves for food first of all. I can increase my population 2 times, but I will build a selective breeding. If I go for 2 rockets, then I can't really build that farm. And I do think that farm just, yeah, will still be worth it and replace itself and help me with the population and later on also for impacts. So maybe I should have built 2 rockets instead. Also going up to more strength, but I know that the next event is no strength event. The thing is, if I reveal the fortifications tactic already, I also can't use the Legion any longer for colonization. Problem is, of course, now that if Arne should see it, then I have to be very careful about how much I bid for the colony, because I might be in danger of an aggression from pajada. Maybe that could again be a reason to just build some rockets, as then I could send more units away while still having maybe enough strength to defend myself. So I'm not sure about this decision of building a farm here. Generally, I do think it is quite strong and important to get that farm going, but maybe to make it more likely that I can bid, or that I can win the colony, that I can bid highly on the colony, I maybe could have just gone for 2 rockets, especially now that I miss out on the draws anyway. So I'm not sure if I played this turn correctly, but with how I play it, I will now be able to get 2 revolutionary ideas, which I thought are just very useful for me to have. Maybe it could be overkill to take both of them, but I have this impact of technology in hand, and I thought, yeah, those revolutionary ideas might just help me to score a lot more in this impact. And then I thought about also taking the military build-up. Maybe I don't need it as much, but for Arne it would be a very helpful card. But it's even the question if I do want to have him vulnerable against pajada. Maybe I don't want to enable pajada to go for a big war now if he potentially has drawn the right cards for that. And so and it also would cause corruption. I would need to play it, and I still might want to take a wonder, which costs a lot of civil action. So at the end I decided to rather build that religion, get out of corruption, increase my culture production. In case I get movies, I can still upgrade the religion to movies, and so that felt at the end better to me. And oh, actually I don't build any rocket at all, so I'm not sure about this. Maybe I could have played the turn differently. Maybe build 1 or 2 rockets, use some military actions already, but having more strength so that I can more easily bid on the vast territory in case it is revealed on Arne's turn. At the end I decided to just build that farm. I was hoping that Arne maybe doesn't seed now, so that the colony isn't revealed on his turn. Sadly, as you can see, he seeds an impact, the vast territory is revealed. I wasn't willing to bid too much, only a swordsman and the H3 colonization card, but that is not enough to win, and at the end Arne is the one winning it for a cavalryman and a colonization card with Marlene's ability. Arne develops the democracy, builds another drama, increases population, rebuilds the cavalryman, going back up to 22 strength, increases population, takes the military build-up and the urban growth, and I mean, he's now at 13 culture production and is only, after his production, 9 culture behind me with more culture production at the moment, but I still have the lead and I still have the superior economy. And during Pajada's turn, the red cross is revealed, and he grabs or he uses that opportunity immediately, takes the red cross, develops the architecture, finishes the red cross, and then upgrades the warrior driveman, which gets him out of corruption, and out of the sudden he will be at 92 or 93 culture even after his turn, and he has out of the sudden a big lead, can maybe even go for another wonder, depending on when those will be revealed. And yeah, I thought things maybe are not going perfectly here in H3 for me, or I started worrying a bit. Pajada now out of the sudden looks already a bit out of reach, and Arne is starting to improve his position and catch up. So I thought at this point it could get hard to play for first place, but I still have the impact of wonders, the impact of tech. Impact of tech has also the potential to be a big one against Pajada, and so I certainly also have a position, lots of resources saved up to score some points, but for now Pajada has now a 30 culture lead before me. I see the impact of technology. I think I have a position where I can score nicely in a bunch of impacts, so I wanted to use every politics phase despite me being weakest. But I know also that one of those cards is the developed territory, so while I was not able to win the vast territory too, now I win the developed territory. I was not totally certain if I should bid on that, because I thought about a turn where I now just go for movies, delaying it again to go into rockets. Now that I win this colony, I kinda have to get into rockets, delaying my culture production, but still it helps me transitioning. I have the Suez Canal, the science might help me getting into more technologies. So at the end I was willing to bid for that, and I sent 2 swordsmen, both of my cards away. I thought about sending all swordsmen, but keeping 1 swordsman gives me 1 option during my turn that I otherwise wouldn't have, and I also will get enough strength so that I'm not in danger of any aggression. So now I kinda have to build some rockets. I will develop them, build one, and also with now planning on building some rockets, I decided to take and develop the military theory, nice for a bunch of impacts, generally helping me with the strength, and just making sure that I can build those units while still getting some draws. I do think I have some decent impacts that I could still draw, so getting more draws basically also might give me additional culture production, same as maybe building some movies would. So I developed a military theory, and here I decided to actually secure myself that copy of movies, because the problem is the other copy of movies is already discarded, so this copy of movie could just relatively easily be taken away by my opponents. Maybe I could get it for cheaper the next turn, but there's also only 1 copy of multimedia left, and I really feared that maybe I don't find anything useful to invest my resources into. And maybe I should play it a bit greedily, hope that I can get it for cheaper at the next turn, but here I decided to take that copy of movies, and now still having that swordsman allows me an option, because I thought about increasing my population and building a rocket. Maybe I should have done it, maybe keeping the swordsman for more strength, could also be nice for impacts like competition and harmony or variety. I'm not sure if it is the correct call, but disbanding that gives me an additional civil action, so I don't have to increase my population right now. I still draw 3 cards, and that means that I can take the reserves and the movies. And you might argue that maybe I don't really need the reserves, maybe I should rather spend the civil actions, keep the swordsman, and maybe you are right with that. But ideally I still will be able to finish a wonder. Maybe fast food chains or internet could potentially be best for me, or the Hollywood, but that I thought might be taken away by Arne here. And then I thought the reserves, especially potentially with the Silk Road bonus, might still be nice. On the other hand, for the impact of tech, I want to develop a lot of techs going for wonders, and then maybe I don't actually find enough civil actions to make good use out of the reserves here. So I'm not sure if it is worth it to spend a swordsman here just to get those reserves, but it might potentially still help me to maybe build as much culture production maybe as possible at the next turn, and then maybe still get into a wonder. I was not really hoping to get even more good impacts. I already have been somewhat lucky with my impact draws, but I might need some more good ones if I want to stay competitive for the first place. I do draw an impact of competition at the moment. It's somewhat seedable, but not really great, and for Pajada, he would slightly profit from it, so I would need to build up towards it, so not an ideal draw. Arne Seeds opens the Ravages of Time. He will lose the Stonehenge. He, as expected, will go for the Hollywood, takes the Air Forces, uses the Urban Growth to build another drama for free, and with that, the Hollywood already gives him 24 culture. He has now the opportunity to go for a strong wonder, while I am still wonderless, so I again was worried a bit, and I was worried even more when I saw Pajada's turn, because he will just use some actions, and then he just takes the fast food chains, meaning 2 more wonders are gone. The only wonders left are Internet and Manhattan Project, and sadly Pajada, in addition to the Red Cross, will get another very solid wonder. Internet and Manhattan Project both probably not that great for him, so he makes sure to get that wonder, and now with him being able to just finish that wonder on top, and I'm at the moment not really being prepared to score a lot out of the remaining wonders, I really, at this point, I thought it could be very tricky, or maybe even very unlikely to finish before Pajada, and Arne is now only 2 culture behind me, has the bigger production, has a good wonder, so even Arne could maybe out of the sudden be back in the game, but I still have impact of wonders and technology. already in the deck, which are both good impacts against him. So I thought I should still have the be in a position where I will at least hopefully finish second if I don't catch pajada. And pajada then goes for some more upgrades to Rifleman, is now at 31 strength. And at my turn I will use my politics phase to actually offer a peace treaty to pajada. And with that, the military alliance that I had with Arne will be cancelled, but I will be getting a little bit of additional culture, and also Arne will actually drop down a bit in strength, is now out of the sudden at 19. And yeah, of course it gives me a bit of culture, but at this point, as I just said, I really was not that confident any longer that I will be able to overcome that big culture peak, and pajada will still get it wonder, so I thought it's just maybe too difficult now to catch up to him, and I should actually rather be concerned about finishing before Arne, and I was hoping that Arne, with losing some strength now, maybe could have some difficulties, maybe could get punished by an aggression from pajada. Additionally, I have now the peace treaty with pajada. I played some turns beforehand and was a bit worried that if pajada has a war on the right tactic, maybe there could still be something dangerous going on, but now I have a complete safety. And yeah, both of the remaining wonders are on the row. I could potentially play the movies, develop the movies, increase my population, build one, take the internet, but that would actually be my whole turn. And the internet would be bigger than the Manhattan Project, but I would spend a lot of actions. I can't that easily prepare for a big impact of tech. I lose culture production that I can now get otherwise, and I felt like it's better to not go for the internet here and maybe either go for no wonder or then just take and finish the Manhattan Project at the next turn. Maybe also depending on whether the impact of wonders will be revealed, which is coming soon. If that isn't revealed, then of course that might be an argument to go for the Manhattan Project. And instead I just improved my culture production. Also, I needed to make a choice here what to lose for the Ravages of Time, because both the Silk Road and the St. Peter's Basilica are not really things that I want to lose. It was a close call. It depended on what I want to do. If I keep the Silk Road, I thought that I can maybe build 2 movies instead of what I do now, build one and upgrade to one, and I still would have enough resources thanks to the Silk Road bonus to take and finish the Manhattan Project at the next turn. And if that should indeed be my plan, then maybe I would get one additional culture production right now and another one at the next turn. The thing is, and that was maybe a mistake during the game, I planned around going for the Manhattan Project at the next turn, but I do think it's not the right call here, because instead I can build another movie for culture and just go for a leader. If I go for the Manhattan Project and want to make the impact of tech as big as possible, I can't do anything else. But if I don't go for the Manhattan Project, I can build a movie, maybe go for Sid Meier, and already that gives me basically the amount of culture that the Manhattan Project gives me. So I do think that was an oversight on my part, that I planned incorrectly for the next turn on what I want to do. Nonetheless, keeping the St. Peter's Basilica might still be the right call, because without it I would just lose a lot of happy faces. And the thing is, Arne has already seeded 2 impacts in, and there are some impacts where he's good at, so he could have multiples, but one that could certainly be in there is the impact of happiness, and I just felt like I could lose a lot potentially from that impact, and so at the end I decided to lose the Silk Road, even though the one resource potentially could make a difference and could make it that I can just build 2 movies without a commitment on whether I want to go for the Manhattan Project or not. Like this, I went for an upgrade, and for building one, losing the religion though for potentially some impacts, but still going up to 20 culture production right now, and then I still have some actions left, and I decided to just prepare for developing some techs. I take the civil service, and I want to go for the technology anyway, so I thought I can also just play both revolutionary ideas and develop that already, so that I'm ahead in civil actions, take the professional sports, and then I play the reserves resources. The next turn I can then potentially take and finish the Manhattan Project and even increase my population, maybe build a warrior for harmony and variety. But probably, and that's also what I will do at the next turn, it will just be better to build a movie, prepare for impacts, go for a leader, and that will then be the better choice. And I should have played around that more instead of always thinking that I will take the Manhattan and finish the Manhattan project at the next turn. Alright, I will get now one more draw, and I was really hoping that I will get something nice to play into the deck here. And I do get something nice, even two nice impacts. Of course, it would have been ideal to get one of them on the draw before, but overall I think I had some very decent or very good impact draws. Impact of government is quite strong against Arne, impact of progress potentially against both of my opponents. Arne seeds. The Independence Declaration is revealed, which actually costs him a colony, so the second colony he loses during that game after getting hit by the Annex. And then he builds a step of the Hollywood. He can build one multimedia and finish the Hollywood, which I was a bit worried about. Maybe I should have considered actually denying him that multimedia. Especially when I think that he is the main contender now that I should worry about, because that is now some big additional culture production from just production and the Hollywood that he will get. So maybe also that's something that I should have considered more. I do think I didn't want to give up completely on the hope of maybe still finding a way to finish before pajada, maybe with the right impacts. But yeah, Arne now gets quite a big Hollywood, and maybe I should have denied him this multimedia to make sure that this Hollywood is limited at 24 culture for him. He then takes the tanks. And H4 starts. Pajada tries actually an armed intervention against Arne, who has lost some strength, but he still has 2 defense cards and can defend himself. Pajada then will increase his population, builds an opera, builds 2 steps of the fast food chains, builds a religion, makes sure to get out of corruption, and then at the next turn he can finish the fast food chains, maybe develop the military theory, and with the reserves still do some other things. Now it is my turn. I will see the impact of government. At this point I just thought catching up to Pajada won't happen, and I need to focus on Arne here, who will get now a 30 points wonder, has 20 culture production, and has now already seeded 3 impacts into the deck, which worried me quite a bit. And so I seeded a one where I get more points against Arne with the impact of progress. That would also be good against Arne, but not as good, and it would be better against Pajada, but I needed to focus on Arne here, so I seeded that. The impact of variety is revealed, which is a bit sad, because I will actually improve that impact by +4 during my turn, so the impact of wonders would have been the better reveal for me, but I still at least gained 2 points against Arne, so that is a fine impact for me to see, considering that I didn't seed it. And then I won't go for the Manhattan project here. I will go for Sid Meier instead, who gives me 4 culture production immediately. I can build a movie that helps me also for impacts like happiness, potentially also culture, with going up to that much culture production. And then I will build a religion. Sadly, variety is out, but still I complete my happy phases. And then I decided to destroy a mine here that costs me only 1 point for the impact of industry, nothing else, but building the swordsman. Sadly, variety is out, competition I have in hand, but I thought harmony could certainly be one of the impacts that Arne has seeded, and that would be quite bad for me, so at least I can make that a little bit less bad. And then I will develop the professional sports. My impact of technology is actually quite strong against my opponents, and I draw I then take the mechanized agriculture with my last actions. Now it's Arne's turn. He seeds, the impact of wonders is revealed, but it means he has not a nice impact. At least he doesn't get points for the Hollywood for the impact of wonders, and that is a nice impact from me against him, but he gets now the Hollywood for 30 points. Maybe I should have indeed just taken the multimedia away from him. I do think maybe that was a bit of an oversight from me. Maybe I was still just hoping too much that I also have chances against Pajada. But that could have been quite an important denial actually here. Especially, I'm not sure, was it in 2 or 3 civil actions, but I do think it would have meant some compromises, and especially with me planning around finishing the Manhattan project, which maybe I shouldn't have done. I mean, finishing the Manhattan project would have still given me 2 for wonder, 6 for finishing, and it would have helped me for the impact of strength in case that should be in there, so there are still some arguments to be made, and leaving myself open to that option certainly has some merits. But yeah, maybe I shouldn't have been too focused on that. Maybe potentially thought about denying the multimedia here. Arne will take a revolutionary on patriotism, builds the unit, sadly is stronger than me right now, so that kind of feels like maybe impact of strength could be coming. Pajada, who hasn't seeded a single impact so far actually, will now push his first and only one. Impact of government is revealed. That's quite strong for me, not as strong as in the second game of the season if you remember, but still a very decent one, giving me 10 points against Arne. But as you can see, even with those 10 points I'm still behind him, so and one of my big impacts is now out. So at this point I was worried that maybe Arne could have even the edge here against me, even though the impact of tech will still give me a very solid amount of points against him. And pajada will this turn increase his strength, either having seeded impact of strength or sensing that Arne might have seeded it, finishes the fast food chains for 24 points, ends his turn, and before the final impacts we can see that his lead is probably just too big. Between me and Arne though it's still relatively close, which is not really what I was happy, or I was a bit surprised by that, because if you remember back at age 3, I was very happy actually about my position, just having finished the Suez Canal, then getting that democracy, Arne still being on monarchy, 5 civil actions, being behind in culture, but now out of the sudden he's going into the final impacts, and with him having seeded that many impacts, maybe potentially with the edge here, and really need to hope that my big impact of tech is enough to stay or to overtake him and then stay in the lead. The first impact is indeed the impact of happiness, so playing around that paid off for me, so at least I don't lose any points here to Arne, and we are catching both a bit up to pajada. Then there's the impact of population, maybe seeded by pajada, which wouldn't be ideal, because I was really hoping here that pajada maybe seeded an impact that then might profit me against Arne. Of course it might have been also seeded by Arne, it gives him +8 against me, which I was not happy to see. Then there's also the impact of variety, another +8 for Arne against me, so now his lead is getting quite big. And sadly there's also the impact of strength, another +7 for him against me. Now the gap is quite big. There is still my impact of tech left, so let's see if that will be enough. Pajada gets +8, Arne +12, I get +24, so I do catch up, but there's still actually quite a gap between me and Arne at the end of this game, and so sadly I lose the game at the end. And that was a bit of a surprise for me. I do think Arne made a very nice comeback here. He had a rough position, and he also wrote in the chat himself that he didn't really think that he would make a comeback, and also pajada said that he was surprised. And yeah, I mean, just remember back in age 3 at the beginning, I had just finished the Suez Canal, 10 resource production, then getting the democracy. Of course I was somewhat low in population, but still, I had just felt like I have a strong position and it might be a fight between me and pajada. Sadly, pajada managed to get Red Cross and fast food chains, while I at the end didn't get any wonder. Of course it was also a bit of a struggle for me. I had to build those rockets, so when I maybe already could have gone into movies, I delayed it a bit, building my military units. So I had it to do at a time when maybe it could have been just strong to focus completely on culture income. I do think it could have been maybe an improvement for me if the vast territory would have been revealed a turn earlier instead of the politics of strength. If that would have been the other way around, I could have gotten into rockets, and I don't remember it exactly. Maybe I could have even taken the strength lead then. So that was maybe a bit unfortunate, but yeah, also just something that certainly can happen. And I actually did draw some nice impacts for myself. Sadly, the impact of progress I didn't have time to put into the deck at the end, but maybe it was still a little bit unfortunate that that many bad impacts were in there for me, but I had also some good ones drawn, so I don't think I was very unlucky, maybe slightly unlucky with all the bad ones, and sadly none really good one that maybe was seeded by pajada. So that was maybe a bit unfortunate, but Arne just got Marlene, played towards us out, got the democracy, Hollywood, and at the end that was enough to overtake me actually. And maybe I should have taken that multimedia way that produced him 6 culture from 2 productions +6 from the Hollywood. That's probably more than whatever I did with the actions, even if it maybe cost me going for 1 technology or something. It probably would have been worth it to deny that, but maybe my mind didn't accept it fully that I'm now only focusing on Arne and that I'm even very much in danger. I still thought I have this big impact of tech, this big impact of wonders, and I still wasn't completely aware on maybe how the situation is, but if maybe denying the multimedia was a potentially necessary move here. Alright, nonetheless a very interesting game. I was actually, as said, very happy about my position. Silk Road, St. Peter's Basilica, getting into Railroad, then getting to Suez Canal plus autonomous territory, having the culture lead. I just felt things are going great for me. But at the end, it was just not enough. Right, still an interesting game, and now we can also take a quick look at the standings after that game. And I think the big winner of that game is, of course, logically the player who won it, Pajada. But yeah, I do think that was a very important win for him. Also, that I maybe lost that game. I was in a very comfortable position going into the second batch, but now out of the sudden, Payada has overtaken me, and now I have to make sure to score more points than him again. At least there's one more game that I'm playing against him, so I have it still in my own hands, but now I really need to get some good results in my 2 remaining games in order to still be able to fight for the first place. And for Arne, of course, being able to make that comeback finish at the second position also was important. Makes it that he still is somewhat in touch with the first place, but maybe potentially more importantly, he has got some points too for the fight against relegation. For him, everything is still possible. So yeah. So I hope it was an interesting game for you to watch. I hope you're excited for the remaining games to come. And then I say thanks for watching, have a nice time, and see you in the next video.